We know time never stands still, but it can stand alone. And when it does, you can witness life flashing by in all its glorious uncertainty.
Here's a Tatsudo, Saki Mother McKinnon, and it's all nature strip.
Now, here we are again. That time of year. Spring in Melbourne. And Flemington is front and centre. A season of revelation since 1861. The year a lanky bay called Archer beat the field, but only took the first strides on an extraordinary road that just keeps going. The road to the Lexus Melbourne Cup.
And now, the greatest of them all, the Melbourne Cup.
I just can't believe what's just happened.
The Cup dominates our world, but it's part of 4 days of incredible theatre that plays out on these famous lawns. We'll witness superstars chasing immortality.
Home Affairs has made a mess of them.
Familiar names, Cummings and Hayes. The dynasties continue. Chris Waller and Gay Waterhouse. The world's best jockey, James McDonald. And our greatest of all time, Damien Oliver.
He's done it, Ollie. He's 7th Oaks.
And of course, the equine superstars who simply take our collective breath away.
Superstorm dives. Photo.
To win here in the spring is to forge a name that springs eternal.
Champion becomes a legend.
And the beauty is, we can all be part of it. The fashion, the food, the world-class entertainment. It's the greatest sporting party on earth. Put yourself in the moment and be swept along on a journey of uncertainty. Glorious uncertainty.
And the one racing certainty is that through the next 10 days, the Victoria vibe will be back, and that Flemington Racecourse, this gorgeous corner of sport, will be packed to the rafters, as it should be, as we are on the cusp of the Melbourne Cup Carnival 2022. Nick Luck alongside my flying companion, Hayley Moore from the UK, Australian racing analyst and expert Grace Ramage, and bowling second change today, Simon O'Donnell. And we are expecting the people to come and the people to have as much fun as they can at a truly wonderful sporting event.
No, we certainly are, and it's really exciting to have you two on board. Nick, your first Melbourne Cup.
It's my
Hayley, your second
day in Australia.
Brilliant. A very warm welcome from both of us and the
Absolutely.
whole racing community. Lovely to have you on board.
Isn't it fantastic to have the eyes of the international racing community back on Melbourne?
And with COVID gone,
Yep.
racing is back with the people.
Yeah.
And that's what we have here over this glorious carnival over 4 days. We're expecting more than 300,000 people. And it is just a brilliant atmosphere here. The horses make it, the people make it exciting. And, you know, it's our showcase week to the world.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be an absolute belter.
And we can see all sorts over the next few days. But whilst there will be fashion, whilst there will be finery, what's most important is what happens on the track. And this is what you've got to enjoy. We're just a couple of days away now from where it all begins, Penfolds Victoria Derby Day on Saturday, then Lexus Melbourne Cup Day, the race that stops nation, Tuesday, Kennedy Oaks Day Thursday, and then this brand new concept of $3 million Grade 1 races, the TAB Champion Stakes Day on Saturday the 5th of November. So much to enjoy, and a big event like this, Grace, deserves a big launch.
Well,
grand launch.
that's the thing. I mean, we've got so much to look forward to with those 4 amazing, glorious race days. But it all kicked off last Monday here in Melbourne, really reuniting the city to focus on what is such an integral part of our local Victorian community. Here we can see with the launch, Ariane Titmus, Olympic legend, delivering the Melbourne Cup to champion jockeys Jamie Carr and Damien Oliver. Here we can see all of the fun and frivolity, Gay Waterhouse front and centre there. And of course, then we talk a lot about the fashions on the field, thanks to Maya. A huge event. So many people will be back, all represented in terms of both genders being able to share the catwalk, which is really exciting as well. And Hayley, this is the birdcage. And I feel like if we weren't talking horses, this is where we want to be.
This, Grace, I think sounds like our spot. We need to get in there at some point. All the celebs, entrepreneurs, the creme de la creme of society hanging out here. They're there to party, watch the racing, of course, and even an astronaut. So it really is very inclusive down there, Nick.
It is. I fully anticipate making an appearance at the birdcage before this week is out. Now, one much more familiar face to regulars here at Melbourne from across the other side of the world is our colleague and renowned international broadcaster Francesca Cumani, who's been part of the network broadcast of the Melbourne Cup now for well over a decade. She's back after a 3-year absence, and we've been asking her what Cup Day really means.
The sensory explosion, I think, when you get here on Cup morning, we get here pretty early with everything that's going on, but you've got the bright green grass, the roses exploding into bloom, you've got the sound of the helicopters coming into land, you've got the preparations underway, and then as race time comes closer, and actually as the Melbourne Cup is upon you, you've got the sight and the smells of the horses in the mountain yard, which is where I love to be, and then they go down to post, and the circling behind the barriers, and then when the gates crash open, it honestly just brings all the emotions to the skin almost. Like, it's just, you get these goosebumps on the back of your neck, and there's just nothing quite like it. The internationals are going to be really hard to beat. They do come here with some really good form lines, and the feeling I'm getting this year is that the local stayers are a little bit substandard, so that propels their chances even more. There aren't many of them. Don't forget that in the past we've had nearly half the field made up of internationals. This year, just a small but select few. Deauville Legend looks like the one, though.
Right. No one's going to disagree with Francesca that Deauville Legend is a worthy market leader for this race, but a little zinger there from our friend. Substandard?
How do we feel about this, Simon?
I'm interested to get our two visitors' opinions, actually, on what they think of the Aussie and New Zealand crop this year.
Well, we're diplomatic, Kaylee, aren't we? We call it an open race.
A very open race. I think she might have regrets in saying that, though. I think we're both big fans of Deauville Legend and what he brings to the party with his form back in the UK. However, I think this year it does look very, very open, and I would not be happy to discount any of the Australian representatives, especially with the way the weights are panning out this year's renewal. I think that you've got some great chances, and it's a lot different. I was looking back through the route that like Cross Counter came in, and it's very similar to Deauville Legend. He was actually beaten in the Voltigeur, and he only carried, for the sakes of an international programme, 8 stone, whereas Deauville Legend's got 8 stone 9. That's a huge big chunk of weight that he's got to lug around this year.
It certainly is. Weights will be critical, I think, when it comes to the outcome with the winner of the Melbourne Cup. I think what Francesca's saying is, I suppose there is no standout from the Australian or the New Zealand crop this year. It's quite an even bunch. We'll see horses obviously peaking for their grand final, which is the 2 miles of the Melbourne Cup on Tuesday. But at the moment, it is a really tricky sort of a game, putting the puzzle together, working out who's coming out on top from the locals.
And that unique aspect of 24 runners. A lot of the horses coming from Europe, they haven't sensed that before in a horse race. The build-up to it, of coming out of the tunnel, and suddenly there's 100,000 people in front of you, and the colour and the noise. So all those things horses have to acclimatise to before they go out and perform their best. And that's the testing part, not only for the locals, for our visitors as well.
That's a really good point, isn't it, Nick? Because we were discussing how back in the UK, our horses are tucked up in a box, they can chill out, whereas over here, it's beautiful the way you've got the cross tying and you get to see them hopefully chilling out before their race, maybe not. And of course, we don't know how some of them are going to take these preliminaries.
And it's just worth remembering that even though there have been 9 international winners of the Melbourne Cup, 3 decades ago, 30 years ago, it was inconceivable that a horse from anywhere other than Australia would come here and win this race. That all changed, and we'll be finding out a bit more about that after this break. But, of course, the Cup is all about the fashions and finery, and it has been for decades now. We'll see you in a minute.
English model Jean Shrimpton creating a scandal in her miniskirt. Where were her gloves and a hat? And no stockings either.
Welcome back. There have been 9 internationally trained winners of the Melbourne Cup. It's become a much more common phenomenon in recent times. 2020, the most recent of them, the second winner for young star trainer Joseph O'Brien in the race. The first of them was Rekindling in 2017, and between them, Cross Counter, the first winner for the Brits in 2018. The Germans got in on the act with Protectionist in 2014. 3 years earlier, a French winner in Dunedin. His compatriot, America, had kicked it off for France under a brilliant ride from Gerald Mosse in 2010. The Japanese have been dominant over the last decade. They took the cup in 2006 with Delta Blues, and the man that kicked it all off was one of the great Irish trainers, Dermot Weld, with Media Puzzle, an emotional moment for Damien Oliver back in 2002. And it all started with this great horse in 1993. And the story of Vintage Crop now is told by the legendary trainer himself.
Well, in 1992 was the year that Vintage Crop really came forward. And I knew I had a horse good enough, I thought, that could challenge for a Melbourne Cup. He was handicapped in 1992, but we couldn't bring him there. It just was not possible or practical. So there started interest in Australia, and David Burke, Les Benton were the 2 men in charge in Australia and Melbourne. And between the Department of Agriculture in Canberra and Dublin and Brussels, over the next year, it was all put together.
Ready for a start in the 1993 Melbourne Cup, and they're off. Drum taps began well to a big roar from the crowd. Cavalieri dropped in behind them with great Vintage. Silcardi began fast. Vintage Crop was away smartly as just behind them.
And talk to me about the run-in, the preparation for Vintage Crop running into that year's Cup.
He travelled reasonably well, but we got him well rehydrated. He was very happy out in Sandown. And initially, it took him a while to acclimatise. He was a very brave horse, a very tough horse. He was a little bit delicate, and this was a big adventure for him. And it took me a while just to get him right. And it was only basically in the last 3 or 4 days before the race that I was happy with him.
Vintage Crop, the Irish horse will win the Melbourne Cup. Vintage Crop, 2 lengths to Yarkow, Nick just held second.
And what was it, the experience like being a trainer in the Melbourne Cup? Such a different race day, the atmosphere.
It's a wonderful race day. It's one of the great race days of the world. It's one of the great events of the world. And it was very, very special.
No, I just want to thank everybody for their help and everybody here in Australia who's made me very welcome.
Dr. Dermot Weld there, sharing memories of Vintage Crop with Ali Vance. He's a man who changed the course of international racing, and particularly the Melbourne Cup, forever. Delighted to say that Hayley, Grace and I have been joined by another man who's done the same thing, the 3-time Melbourne Cup winning jockey on the Great Maccabi Diva, Glenn Boss. Bossy, great to see you. And first of all, Dr. Dermot Weld, you've ridden against him, you've ridden for him.
Yep.
Special man.
Oh, arguably one of the world's great trainers. Yeah, 20-time Group 1, 20-time winner of the championship in Ireland. Has trained Group 1 winners in no less than 8 or 9 countries around the world. One of the great travellers. And yeah, he was an amazing man before he started training. You know, a veterinary surgeon, a jockey. He did it all, hasn't he? So, but just to be in his presence, you actually knew when you were speaking to him that you were in a presence of someone very great, because he didn't speak a lot. His words were very few, but when he spoke, you listened.
You know what it's like to win this race, and we're going to talk about your most famous victory in the race in just a sec. But first of all, that second win on Maccabi Diva, you beat Dermot Weld. Did that give you greater context to what you were achieving?
Well, what it actually did, I realised the enormity after the event, because Dermot and I actually spoke in this room because it was raining, and they used to have the presentation in this room, and he actually put his hand on my shoulder and said, "Bossy, you were actually too good today because my horse was perfectly ridden." Talking about Vinnie Rowe, he said, and he was absolutely spot on the day. And he was regarded as the world's best 2-miler 2 years running. So that just like went, wow, that's just such a great thing for him to say to me, that I realised that I'm now on the world's best horse, Maccabi Diva.
You were too good in 2004, you'd been too good in 2003, and he was definitely too good in 2005. Let's just enjoy this again.
The champion becomes a legend. Maccabi Diva has won it from either Honorzern. Excellent. Like a Falcon is close up, and just behind those horses then was Lachlan River. Portland Singer, and further back in the field is Kinjal, Rizon, Dizelle. Behind them is Demerger and Envoy. Eye Popper, followed further back then by Vinnie Rowe, Railings, Vouvray, Strasbourg.
Couldn't you just watch that over and over and over again?
Yes, those scenes, like they've stuck in my head for years. The way that you celebrated, and it just made me think, I want to go to Melbourne one day. I want to witness that race because there was so much celebration. I just thought they were such wonderful racing moments that have stuck in my mind for years to come.
Well, Haley, you know, you've got 120-odd thousand people at the races, and you know, my job was to entertain them. You know, we did a remarkable thing today, or McIvy did. I just sat there and pointed and shooted. She did all the work, but you know, you just had to give them something back, and I fed off that energy. Like the more they got louder, the more I give them, and they just kind of bounced around. Yeah, I mean, I did some silly things, but yeah, moments that are just etched in my mind forever.
Yeah, we crave on Tuesday just a scintilla of that energy, and then we'll be very happy. At this stage, this is what the 24-strong field is looking like. Now, things can change. They can be quite dynamic over the weekend with races where you need to win to get in. So this might not be the full lineup, but this is what it's looking like at the moment. Luna Flair at the top, Deauville Legend, the big hope for the UK, Gold Tripper class act. Kimura now with the Hayes team, ex-European. Lofton without a fight, we'll talk about in a few moments. Looking further down the list, Vow and Declare there for Danny O'Brien. Tralee Rose, New Zealand bred, down at 18. And the ones who are just getting in at the moment, though they could still drop off, Emissary and Realm of Flowers completing the lineup at 24. And plenty of horses coming out of the Caulfield Cup as well, though not Durston, who was scratched from the race earlier today. Now we are having a look at Deauville Legend, training at Werribee earlier in the week. Hayley, what are the key pluses as regards this horse?
There are lots of pluses. He actually probably does bring in the best form, I think, that we've got in the build-up to this race, the winner of the Vulture. And every time we're seeing him go to the races, he's progressing with each start. And I still think there's a little bit more to come from him. And that's what I'm hoping will allow him to carry what is going to be quite a big weight for a young horse in the Melbourne Cup. But he has got a lot of good attributes, the way he relaxes in his races, and he does travel very strongly as well. I think that the fact you're going to see a really strong team of James Ferguson getting Kerry McAvoy on board. Now, this is a team that have put a lot of effort in the past to be successful when Charlie Appleby came down. And that really is sticking in my mind, that James was pivotal in getting some really big results a few years ago. He knows what he's doing. He's an exciting horse.
I love to get an Australian professional's perspective on fresh European horses. Bossy, tell me why you've been so impressed with the German challenger Loft, who won a race at Belmont Park in the United States earlier in the year. Yeah,
like he's just one of those horses. When I was riding, and you know, I sort of like to. I'm a box ticker, you know, I just go that, yes, done that. He ticked a lot of boxes for me. He's won over the trip. He's travelled and won. The time he ran when he won in the States was actually quicker than any Melbourne Cup that we've ever run. I know they have quick tracks, but he's got the ability to run very quick. He's got a very good turn of speed. And I talked James to riding into this horse about 6 or 7 weeks ago. I said, you've got to have a serious look at this horse. And we had long discussions. He rode in here on Tuesday, and you could not hide the smile on this kid's face. He had this cheeky smile, and I rang him, and about 10 o'clock in the morning I said, what do you think? He said, man, we've got a serious horse here.
And we've got a serious rider. Grace, we're not talking about a greenhorn here. We're talking about, well, arguably the world's best jockey, certainly in the top 3 or 4.
So James McDonald is at the peak of his powers right now, and I feel honestly privileged to be seeing him doing what he's doing. So if you put it into perspective, Bossy, he has ridden the most Melbourne Cup Carnival winners of all time. And he did it last year with 10 winners, which is a remarkable feat to think that he gets given, or he gets the opportunity to be put on the best horses, and he's got a serious contender in Loft this year. What can he do this year? What can he do next year and in years to come? So it is so exciting to see what he can achieve on the biggest stage of all for Australian racing. And, you know, if he's got that cheeky smile coming back off a piece of track work on the famous Flemington course, then I think he knows what he's got under him.
Now, who is going to give you the cheekiest smile in this in this
Well,
Melbourne Cup?
there's one horse which I am considering to be a really good local hope, and her name is Montefilia. So this is a filly trained by David Payne. She's won Group 1s in the past. She's an out-and-out stayer. Now, this was her run in the Caulfield Cup, which was won by Durston with a very lightweight, a key lead-up race to the Melbourne Cup each and every year. Her run was unlucky. She had a checkered passage, and her last 200 metres was absolutely enormous. In fact, it was the fastest last 200-metre sectional of the entire race meeting. At the end of 2,400 metres, I think she'll stay. And I think she's just got that class about her now, getting out 4th up for her grand final race. I'm not suggesting she's better than the internationals, but I think she'll run a very bold race.
And, of course, you're going to get about twice the odds that you might have at Loft and about 3 times the odds you would get a Deauville Legend. Bossy, apart from Cup Day, I know you're really looking forward to the new concept, the Champions Day that is at the back of this carnival.
Oh, this is something, this is going to be mouthwatering. You know, the Darley Sprint on last day, and then we've got the Champions Mile, and then we've got what used to be the McKinnon Stakes, 2,000-metre race. And this will be a day where I think we'll break records for crowds. If we get decent weather, people will be coming to see the Nature Slip Clash with Giga Kick again. And it's just going to be...
And to see Animo back, the Cox Plate winner.
Yeah, I mean, this
the
is
new
just,
champion of the weight for age ranks.
These are days that you dream about, to be honest. I mean, if you're a rider or just a spectator, you know that you're going to be, privileged to see 3 great races in before that with Oaks Day and obviously, those sort of Melbourne Cup Day. But then to think last day, this could be one of the best.
I know.
It's mouthwatering to think about it.
Bossy's enjoying life out of the saddle as much as he did in the saddle. I'm expecting a bit of this in a minute. Bossy, thanks so much. Enjoy this next couple of weeks.
I really appreciate it, and hope everyone has a wonderful 4 days.
The great Glenn Boss. We're going to take another break. They'll all be out at Flemington through the next couple of weeks. You know it.
Some work, but it kicks away. 2.5 lengths in front of Hitotsu, who's out into the clear and chasing. Allegra at the 200. Here's Hitotsu, though, finishing at a rate of knots. Hitotsu goes on by. Hitotsu storms away. Hitotsu wins the Penfolds Victoria Derby. 2 lengths Allegra.
That was Hitotsu winning last year's Victoria Derby. It kicks off the Melbourne Cup Carnival on Saturday. This is the field this time. Berkeley Square, Mr. Maestro, the William Buick-ridden Pericles amongst the leading fancies here. Muramasa likewise. And Berardino for Damien Oliver. And down to Lendorf at 16. A test that requires a rare blend of street wisdom and stamina, Grace. Where to start with this race this year?
A really high-quality field of 3-year-olds have assembled for this year's 2,500-metre Victorian Derby. There's plenty of horses that have got genuine winning chances, I think. I mean, the favourite for the race is Berkeley Square. He's coming off a win in the Moonee Valley Vars at the 40 metres of the Cox Plate distance last Saturday. So he's on the quick backup here. He's got that fitness in his legs. And also, what's great about this horse, Hayley, and I know you agree, I think Flemington's going to suit him to a T.
Yeah, that's right. When he came round the turn, obviously what was a very tight track at Moonee Valley, he just took a couple of strides until he got a little bit better with his balance, and then he pulled away again. I can't wait to see him running here at Flemington. Yeah,
going back to Caulfield, Mr. Maestro and Muramasa, these two are in the betting. And Mr. Maestro, just the way he finished off that 2,000, very similar to Berkeley Square. You expect those two horses to be running out a strong 2,500 metres.
Okay, so he'd be where you'd be going? Or am I?
Not yet. Speak to you Saturday.
All right. If you're invited back on Saturday, which is no guarantee at this stage of proceedings. Grace will be there. Grace will be.
I'll be there. It is a
alongside me getting wet.
fantastic day's racing, Derby Day. It's one of the highlights of the entire Australian racing calendar, and I cannot wait for the Coolmore Stud Stakes, again for the 3-year-olds, but for the speedsters down the famous Flemington Straight.
All right, shall we have a look at what we can enjoy over the course of the next 10 days then here at the Melbourne Cup Carnival? Saturday, Penfolds Victoria Derby Day, Lexus Melbourne Cup Day Tuesday, then Thursday the Kennedy Oaks Day, and rounding off with the TAB Champion Stakes Day. 3 Grade 1s on the card, each worth $3 million. And of course that clash, the rematch between the 1-3 in the Everest Giga Kick and the Royal Ascot winner Nature Strip. My thanks to Simon, to Grace, to Hayley. We'll see you all during the course of the next weeks. Thanks very much for having us. I hope we're not done just yet.
I'll give you another try.
All right. Bless you. You're a kind man. Thank you very much for watching as well. Make sure you're back with us on Saturday and let the games begin at Flemington as we build to the most important event in Australian sports.